Hello, my name is Jill Hawthorne, and I am part of the Alumni Family Engagement Team and Class of '87. Welcome to Pitzer at Home, where we offer virtual workshops, lectures, tutorials, and more featuring our Pitzer community. We are honored to have the expertise of Valerie Miller, Parent Class of '23, and Dina Bsharat for our second career development workshop using emotional intelligence as a foundation for career development. The workshop will be recorded and available on demand at Pitzer at Home for the remainder of the year. Without further delay, I would like to introduce our career coaching team, Valerie and Dina. I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jill. And welcome, everyone. We wanted to let you know a little bit about us before we start. We're both certified professional coactive coaches and accredited by the International Coaching Federation, which is the gold standard in coaching. So you're in very good hands. And we both worked for many years in the corporate world, but we became dissatisfied with our jobs and decided to change careers about 5 years ago. So that's how we met, through one of our coaching certification programs. And we quickly found that we shared a passion for helping people and careers, and helping people find careers that they love. And we knew we could provide them with the tools to develop themselves and step into their new roles. We believe that finding a fulfilling career is not only achievable, but a goal that we should all strive for. And we're committed to championing each other along the way. One of our core jobs as coaches is support, and we're tremendously grateful to be sharing the next few hours with you and hopefully support you in your career goals. So that's a little bit about us. And we wanted to know a little bit about you, why you're here. Are you searching for a new career? Are you looking for a new job? Did you just graduate and you're looking for a job? Are you looking to change careers? If you could just use the chat box and let us know where you are on your journey and what brings you with us today. So I'm going to let you, Dina, look at the chat box.
Yeah, I don't see anything coming in yet.
Okay, don't be shy, and please feel free to, throughout this call, share any questions that come up for you. We will present for about 50 minutes, and then afterwards we'll have some time to answer all of your questions. Anything?
Olivia says she's shifting from working internationally to looking for a career here in California.
Okay, great. And also let us know where you're calling in from, like what city or what country, where are you? Okay, and I wanted to let you know that the worksheets and homework assignments are a way to put all your learnings into practice. So make sure you have these printed out, and if you don't have them printed out, just grab a pen and paper because all of the information will be on the screens. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dina.
Thanks, Val. Hi, everyone. So emotional intelligence, for us, we really feel is the #1 skill required in your professional life. And we're talking about personal development skills that can keep you strong and resilient and make you a leader in your own life. Emotional intelligence involves being aware of your emotions and being able to control them. It's also being cognizant and respectful of others' emotions in order to develop strong, positive, and effective relationships. Honing your leadership qualities is so important in today's world, where organizational structures are becoming flatter and flatter. Everybody in any current system is required to take on more responsibility and even lead in their role, no matter what their position is in the company. And everybody is being asked to step up. And so this is why everybody, not just the management, is required to have some sort of leadership skills. In fact, a career builder study of more than 2,600 hiring managers and HR professionals showed that over 2/3 value emotional intelligence of employees over their IQ levels. 75% of them even said that they'd be more likely to promote someone who had high emotional intelligence once they're in the job. And over half said they'd pass on a candidate who had a high IQ but scored low on emotional intelligence. And employees with high emotional intelligence are better at staying calm under pressure. They know how to effectively resolve conflict and are empathetic to their team members. So knowing that current employers value emotional intelligence so highly and that future employers are predicted to care about it just as much, it's critical that anybody in the job market first understand what emotional intelligence really is, because we talk about it a lot, and I'm sure a lot of you, if not all of you, have already heard of the phrase emotional intelligence, but what is it really? And that's what we're going to cover today. And then, we're also going to give you steps on how to increase it. And this will help you excel not just in the interview situations, but also in your job. So today we'll break down the 4 qualities of emotional intelligence, which are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And we'll guide you through exercises for each that will help you develop each of these qualities and show you ways and how you can apply them to either your job search or your career transition. And also use them towards your overall well-being, because it's not just, about your work life. One thing to keep in mind as we go through all of the sections is that they're all building blocks. So you can't develop self-management if you don't have high self-awareness, right? And same with social awareness. You can't build relationship management if you're not high, if you haven't already built some sort of social awareness as well. So just wanted to point that out.
Okay. So let's start with building your self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to be conscious of how your actions, thoughts, or emotions are or aren't serving you. If you're highly self-aware, you can objectively evaluate yourself in real time, manage your emotions, and align your behavior with your values. Self-awareness is also important because when we have a better understanding of ourselves, we can consciously develop our strengths, we can empower ourselves to make changes, and we can identify areas that we want to improve. And important steps towards self-awareness are identifying what you're focusing on, and if that focus is serving you, filtering the facts from the thoughts, changing your thoughts to positive ones, and creating action steps that serve you. Specifically, we're talking about getting out of your own way and starting to think positively about your career goals. When people are unhappy in their job or they've been laid off and they're looking for a job, they may spend time thinking about or focusing on a current situation. So it's important to be aware of what you're focusing on and make sure that you're not sabotaging yourself. For example, I am a worrier. I used to lay in bed at night and replay some negative experience I had at work and wonder how that was going to play out the next day. And I realized that just focusing on the event was not going to make it any better. But this is very difficult because we as humans have a greater sensitivity to the negative and a greater capacity to store negative data. For example, you make an Instagram post and you have 100 people telling you, it's beautiful, you're amazing, you're so intelligent, what a great post. And you have one comment that says, what a dumb post. So that's the piece of information that you're going to retain. But the good news is our brains, we can train our brains to focus on the positive. Studies in neuroplasticity have proven that our brains are able to make new connections that serve us better. In order to develop new habits and perceptions, our brain needs 2 things. First of all, a connection to something that's meaningful. If it's not meaningful, or we're unclear about why we're doing something, we are much less likely to change. It's training our brains to always go back to our why. That's why spending time uncovering your why and why you're looking for a particular job, how that job is going to enrich your life is really important. Last week's workshop was all about developing your life purpose. And so if you didn't attend, be sure to watch that video, which is on the alumni platform, and you'll be able to understand how to create your why. And secondly, practice. Practice is required to strengthen the new neural connection that our brains have made. Otherwise, it will always default to the most traveled path, the one that isn't serving us. We get into these habits of constantly having pessimistic thinking, and we have to break that. And it's about learning your triggers and how to control them. So we wanted to do a little exercise. You'll see on the first section of your worksheet that there's a place to fill in facts, thoughts, and feelings. We wanted you to take a moment to think about your current situation. What are the facts about this situation? What are the things that you know are 100% true and set in stone? For example, a fact could be that you don't have a job. This is 100% true. Another fact could be that you have X amount of money in your bank account. Another fact could be that you have not been promoted in your current job and you've been there a really long time. So those are the facts. Now, what are the thoughts around the facts? Well, the thoughts could be, no one will hire me. The job market is scarce. I'm never going to find a job. I'm in a tough spot financially and I won't be able to pay my bills. Or if you haven't been promoted in a few years, the thoughts might be, I'm not good enough. This job is a waste of time and I'll never move up. Now, what are the feelings around these thoughts? So maybe you could be feeling worried or anxious or stressed or frustrated. So then when you feel stressed and frustrated, what are the actions that you'll take? You may start to avoid things that are really important, like having a conversation with someone, spending time researching the job market, and you don't reach out to people on LinkedIn, for example, which are all important things to do when you're trying to change careers or you're trying to find a job. And the fact is that we only have control over this part of the equation, the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions. So if we want to change our feelings and actions, we must first change our thoughts. That's why we added space in the worksheet to fill in new thoughts. So what are some new thoughts that you could have about the same facts? The facts stay the same. They're never going to change, but you have the choice to change the thought. For example, a new thought you could have around the fact of finding a job could be, I finally get an opportunity to work in a field that I really enjoy. Or it could be, maybe this time is good for me because it allows me to search for a job that's more meaningful. And one of the most important gifts that you can give yourself is taking time to research the right job. That might be the reason why some of you are on this call. And once you've written down your thoughts, brainstorm by yourself or with a trusted colleague or friend, and write down some action steps that you can take with these new thoughts in mind. Just want to mention that if no action is taken, you will be at the same place you are now in a month from now. So what we do in coaching is try to distill all of the learnings and then write down or identify action steps that you want to take. So you can use this formula anytime you want to change your behavior around a certain topic in your life. And this is a way for you to become more self-aware of your thoughts and how they drive your actions, and that you have the power to control this and the choice to think, feel, and act in service of what you want to achieve. Another aspect of self-awareness is understanding your impact on others and the way you are perceived. And a really easy way to do this is ask for feedback from the people that you know and that trust you and that know you best. So this could be mentors, family, friends, or colleagues. We're going to give this to you as homework. And believe me, this will not only help you build your self-awareness, but it's also going to help you develop confidence and really understand what are your strengths. So take a look at the second part of your worksheet, the one that you see on this screen, and we encourage you to take this action step right when you log out from this call. In addition, this is also going to give you an opportunity to let people in your circle know that you're looking for a job or you're exploring changing careers. Make sure you ask them to connect you with anyone they know that can help you or give you information for your job search. Someone might know somebody in an industry you're exploring, and you could ask them to speak about their journey and what they like and dislike about their industry. And they could point you in the right direction for opportunities. And don't be shy, because you would be surprised how many people really like to talk about what they do and like to help people on their journey because it makes them feel valuable. So now I am going to pass it over to Dina.
Thanks, Val. And just on your last point, in terms of reaching out to people, I wanted to give my own personal example. So I used to work in advertising for many years before I became a coach. And when I discovered coaching and was starting to explore the industry, one of the first things I did was actually go to LinkedIn, search through my contacts, find out who had coaching experience, who was working as a coach. And I ended up finding two people in my network. One was a lawyer who actually turned into a coach and now is actually a psychologist, and another one who used to work in education, and she became a coach to help her in her job. And they were both able to give me two completely different perspectives on the coaching industry and help me make a choice on my next steps. And honestly, these were two people I'd probably only spoken to a handful of times before. But the idea is that if you reach out for help, you'd be surprised that most of the time people are able and happy to help. So definitely reach out to people who, have the experience that you're looking for or are in the industry that you're exploring, or whatever it is. So self-management. Sometimes self-management is also called self-regulation, and it's really about being able to manage the emotional part of your brain, which is referred to as the amygdala. And when the amygdala is activated, it stops the decision-making part of your brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. They cannot both work at the same time. And this is a really important point to remember, because when I learned about this, it kind of changed the way I thought about how my brain works and how I make choices also, because you literally cannot access the part of your brain where you can develop creative solutions or return to a calm state where you can take a logical next step. You cannot do that if your amygdala is being used. And the amygdala helps us process strong emotions like fear and pleasure. And it's evolved in prehistoric times. It's actually a very intelligent system that we have. It's a very intelligent function because it's helped us humans survive in the face of danger from constant threats. And it allows us to react quickly without thinking. And it's responsible for what we call fight or flight. You may have heard that term, or I'm sure you've heard that term. And in times of stress, fear, or anxiety, the fight or flight response is activated. Sometimes they call this the amygdala hijack, or that you're using your survival brain. And this can result in overreactions or knee-jerk decisions. But it's important to note that since it is a very intelligent function, In certain situations, you do want your fear and survival reaction to kick in and propel you into action. For example, if a child steps onto a busy street and you automatically jump into action and grab them and move them to safety, not thinking much about it, right? That was a good thing. That was good that you had an amygdala hijack. And there's also times where you experience fear, but there's something even greater, more important also present. So you feel the fear and do it anyway. For example, when you're fundraising, this is again just an example, but you may be fundraising for your startup and you have to present to multiple people. And of course, there's fear here, but there's also something else, something greater and more important than your fear, like the purpose behind your startup or the solution that you solve for your target audience. And this is more important than your fear in the moment. And this also helps propel you into action. It helps you go through presentation after presentation, even though you still might be very fearful of doing that. So our fight or flight response is what helps us evolve and survive as a species, right? But the problem lies in that we are wired, either through our upbringing, conditioning, or even genetically, to rely on and depend on our survival brain, even when it's usually not the best response. And sometimes it can actually make the situation worse. And I'm sure we all have our own examples of that. But the important thing to note is that the way our brains and bodies react to real threat versus perceived threat is actually the same. And so that's why the first step to self-management is just to simply notice. And here we're talking about noticing when your survival brain is activated so that you can make a conscious choice to return to a more calm state. Notice that maybe your heart is racing or your stomach is feeling upset, or maybe you just can't shake an uneasy feeling. And when this happens, remind yourself that what you're feeling, what you're experiencing is an automatic response, but not one that is going to serve you in this moment and for what you want to do or what you want to achieve. You can concentrate on your breathing. That's a really easy way to do something to bring yourself to a rational state. Other things that you could do are, going for a walk, calling up a friend or family member just to talk it out. And once you've reached a calm and rational state, you can think about a logical solution from that place in your brain where you can come up with, you can be creative and think of a logical solution, and you can plan your action steps from there. And it sounds so simple, and it is that simple, but it's only once you practice that you'll be able to use it more effectively. And that's okay. You've spent your entire life until now doing things one way. So give yourself the time and, more importantly, the compassion required to make any kind of change in your life. Secondly, developing a practice of self-reflection on a daily basis. Again, it's very simple, but 10 to 15 minutes of inner reflection or meditation to absorb what you've been doing well and to identify what you need to work on. This will help you be more intentional about where you'll focus your attention in the coming days, weeks, or even months. Also, how are your actions honoring or not honoring your values? And values are something that we developed or we discovered or we mined for in last week's workshop. So if you haven't done that, you can also go back and watch the video and kind of find out what your values are in this moment in your life. Lastly, there's another very important aspect to self-management that we have to talk about, because this is actually what's going to help you stay on track with your goals. And we're talking about developing grit. So Angela Lee Duckworth, who's a psychologist and an author that studies grit, defines it as having the passion and perseverance for long-term goals and living life like it's a marathon and not a sprint. And the key to getting grit is developing a growth mindset. So what is a growth mindset? A growth mindset that was proposed by Stanford professor Carol Dweck in her book Mindset describes people who believe that their success depends on time and effort, People that don't believe failure is a permanent condition, but that their skills and intelligence can be improved with effort and persistence. It's a mindset, and it's one that you can cultivate at any point in your life. And this is why we chose to put Michael Jordan's photo here, because we believe that this is a person that exemplifies and lives a growth mindset. You know, if he didn't have a growth mindset, and if any of you are familiar, you know, with his documentary or with his career and how he got to be one of the greatest athletes of all time, you'll see that he went through, you know, he wasn't the best basketball player in his high school team, right? He had to work hard. He put in the time and effort. He failed so many times throughout his career too, but he just got back up. He persevered, and he put in the time and effort, literally. And I think this is a common thread throughout a lot of athletes, actually. That's something that they get, that you're going to have to put in the time and effort. So this is the point. It's a mindset, and it's something that you can actually cultivate. And so what's the opposite of a growth mindset? It's a fixed mindset. And so we wanted to show you guys the difference between the two. A fixed mindset assumes that our character, intelligence, and creative ability are static givens that we're born with. You know, we're just born with this amazing intelligence. I'm just born as the greatest basketball player of all time. No, you're not. This is something that you can change. A growth mindset thrives on challenge and sees failure not as evidence of unintelligence, but as a springboard for growth and for stretching our existing abilities. You know, if we're never challenged, we're never actually stretched. So think about it in that way. This is important because it can actually change what you strive for and what you see as success. By changing the very definition and significance and impact of failure, you can change the deepest meaning of effort. So what are some of the areas in your life right now you know you need to have a growth mindset for? It can help you identify what's lacking in your experience or knowledge to reach your goal and get an education on it. The fact that you're on this call today proves that you have a growth mindset, right? You're looking for ways to improve your emotional intelligence. Amazing. Or maybe there's a skill that you feel that all of your colleagues and peers have, but you don't feel confident in, and you know that you can get the education that you need on it. So we put together some tips on how to develop a growth mindset, and you can print them out in the worksheet sections and make a conscious effort to incorporate them into your life and in the way that you think. So Val's gonna now take you on to social awareness.
Great, thank you, Dina. Social awareness, it's the ability to accurately notice the emotions of others and read situations appropriately. And developing it will give you the ability to understand and respond to the needs of others, but also to gain their respect. Social awareness will help you build strong relationships. It's going to help you boost emotional and social well-being, which we all want. Improve your empathy and compassion for when you communicate with others, and help you know your strengths and weaknesses. So how do you build it? It's made up of the following components. The first one is empathy, truly hearing others' needs and concerns and reflecting back to them that you understand them and you're supportive of them. You can't expect to lead people or be a good team member if you can't understand people's pain points and what they're struggling with. People are influenced by people that care about them. And that's really what good leaders do. They inspire and they empower people by caring about them. Also, understanding your impact on others. How do you come across to others? What are the things that help others approach you and build trust with you? And what kind of energy are you giving off? I remember a situation where I had a colleague who looked angry all the time, and I had to work with her on several projects. Instead of approaching her, and asking questions or asking advice for things that I needed when I got stuck on things, I lost a lot of time floundering around on my own. Probably if I had been more self-aware, I would have asked her, have I done anything to upset you? And that would have maybe built a bridge and would have allowed us to collaborate and move forward more quickly and more efficiently on a project. So yeah, it's about understanding, like, what are you getting? What's the energy that you're giving off? Practicing sincerity, which means giving someone your full attention, minimizing distractions, and reflecting thoughtfully on their words. It sounds really simple, but some people don't do it, and sometimes we need more practice and we need to be reminded to do it. Really leaning in, making sure that when you're speaking to someone, you're not distracted, but you're giving them your full attention. Have you ever been telling someone a story and feeling that they're impatient or distracted by something else? It makes you not even want to continue speaking. On the other hand, when you feel heard, you're more likely to be authentic and share your opinions and perspectives. Also, paying attention to interactions between people, noticing the dynamics between people and how they're unfolding. Are they positive? Are they negative? What are the emotional undercurrents in this room? What's going on between people in your team, for example? Is everybody being respectful of one another? Sometimes when situations are getting toxic between people, you need to either set a really good example of appropriate communication so people can then mirror you, or you need to be proactive and help build a bridge between people. You may think it's not your responsibility, but if you are engaged, it will only help people appreciate you. Also, identifying and being sensitive to the emotional states of others. Is what this person saying being triggered by something? Is the person wanting to share good news? Do I need to take time to acknowledge and celebrate with them? And lastly, making an effort to create relationships with people of diverse backgrounds. One thing that's been proven is that diversity makes us better. We're more creative and we problem solve in a more effective way when there are many different perspectives contributing to the effort. And I know that probably everyone on this call knows this one already, because one of Pitzer's core values is intercultural understanding. So let's go to your worksheet for this lesson. We wanted you to take a moment to fill in your answers to these questions, or fill them in when you get off the call. How good are you at these components, and how can you make yourself better? How can you prove in an interview, for example, that you're good at these things? So we would encourage you to write down on your worksheet which ones you're really good at and which ones you need to drill down on. Change only works if you do. So really take time to do this and think of examples in your life where you shine. And now that you know what social awareness is, what are some ways that you can put it into practice? And back to Dina.
Yeah, and as you're thinking about that, I just want to quickly note here that, emotional intelligence is a very large, it's a gigantic is even an understatement. It's I don't know what it is, but it's I don't know what size it is, but it's huge. It's such a huge topic. And to and what we're giving you guys here is just a little introduction into each of the 4 cornerstones of emotional intelligence, and little exercises that you could do to get you started on that journey to building your emotional intelligence. So to think that we could fit everything about emotional intelligence into an hour or an hour and a half workshop is a little bit crazy. So just take this as an intro. let's say. I just wanted to say that because it might be, you know, there's a lot of information here. We do realize that because, again, it's a huge topic. Anyway, so relationship management. Relationship management is actually understanding the impact that you have on yourself and on others. And one of the driving purposes of building emotional intelligence is to build strong, healthy, and meaningful relationships. Successful leaders understand the value of engaging and collaborating with others. So relationship management is perhaps the most important of the emotional intelligence cornerstones. It allows you to communicate effectively and build bonds with others. In the workplace, it helps you develop your team members, resolve conflict, and influence others with your ideas. In a job search, it's crucial to prove to future employers that you understand and are competent in this area. And it'll help you fit in well with a team and also thrive on the job. So Daniel Goleman, who is the guru and the leading authority on emotional intelligence, breaks them down into 7 pillars. And these are the 7 pillars of relationship management. The first one is influence, and this is your ability to gain support for your ideas. If you can't gain support for your ideas, it doesn't matter how good your ideas are. You'll need to be authentic and you'll need to be more aware of others' values so that you can build their trust and get their buy-in for your objectives and your ideas. The second is inspirational leadership. This is practicing behaviors that inspire and motivate others. Great leaders are able to support and encourage. They're able to set a good example, communicate clear goals, create a strong vision for their company or their team and get everybody behind it, motivate by positive encouragement. And this can be something as simple as saying hello in the morning. One of the general managers that I worked for inspired his team every day just by setting a good example. One of the things that he did every day, which I really loved, was that he would go around the entire office every morning and personally say good morning to everybody in the office, making sure nobody had any burning questions for him, even just stopping to wish someone a happy birthday. All of this before he got to the office. And we were 150 people on that floor, so we weren't a small team by any means. And it was something so simple, but it showed that his team was his priority. And the point is, it doesn't matter if you're a general manager or not, but being a pillar of support in these simple ways can really take you far. The third one is developing others, recognizing others' strengths and offering challenges that allow them to grow. So instead of telling someone how to do something, learn to ask questions that promote creativity and encourage people to contribute their own ideas. By doing this, people become more empowered and they also grow. Give praise when merited and give constructive feedback when needed. And communicate well. Again, the simplicity of this sometimes is appalling, but use language that is concise, relatable, and has the correct emotional tone. The next one is being a change catalyst, which means being adept at recognizing when there's a need for change and managing the consequences of it. And this always reminds me of the social media teams I used to work with, because they were always filled with younger interns and fresh graduates. They were the ones that were most adept at recognizing when things were changing, as they do with social media, every day, and coming up with creative solutions on how we were going to manage these changes for our clients and their brands that we were managing. And this specifically couldn't have been done as quick and as efficiently if these team members weren't there, right? Like they were the ones to take on this pillar, if you will. Conflict management is the next one. Realizing when a situation is heading towards conflict and taking quick and decisive action to resolve it and not letting it fester. The next one is building bonds. And this is cultivating an extensive network of colleagues, acquaintances, and friends. The fact that you've even just graduated university would prove that even if you don't think that you do, you already have a huge network of colleagues, acquaintances, and friends. A career path isn't straightforward, like this expectations on this slide. We think it's going to go like this, but really it's it's a bunch of squiggly lines. And this means that you'll probably cross paths with people in your network over and over in different contexts. So for example, as I mentioned, I worked in advertising before I became a coach. And now that I help people with work-life balance, or I help people, or at least I think I help people achieve work-life balance, I have multiple ex-colleagues and even ex-clients reach out to me looking for help in this area. And they knew and they know that I can relate to them because I've been there before. So you never know where your path may lead. And it's really important to keep good bonds with people along the way. And the last one is teamwork and collaboration. And so this is defining ways that everybody can make their own unique and valued contribution that has a mutual benefit. Encouraging diverse perspectives. Again, this results in highly creative and highly inclusive environment in which people can thrive and feel good about their contribution. Setting clear objective expectations and developing shared values. So we talked about values last time and we mentioned it a little bit on this call. What are the values that you share with your team members or just with the people that you share an office with or a project with? What are the values that you share, and how could you work with that to achieve better outcomes for your company or for the project that you're working on? And using praise as well can go really far. So those are the 7 pillars. And if you're not already using these skills, you can start by finding ways to practice these skills either in your job or even in your daily life. A crucial part of how relationship management can help you in your job search is by listing the ways that you've achieved these competencies on the job. So employers will want to know how you've achieved or managed relationships with your colleagues, clients, or stakeholders in other departments. Here are some examples that we've listed out that prove that you've achieved relationship management in your experience, and you can add these either to your resume or even highlight them as speaking points in your interviews. So some of the examples are: I acted as a main point of contact of partners and maintained strong, profitable business relationships. I increased client retention rate by 50%. I developed a team of 10 people, increasing each team member's productivity by 30%. I initiated a program that allowed employees to have better work-life balance. And then I became a coach. No, I'm kidding. So now turn to your worksheet, which will help you assess your skills in these areas and focus on ways that you can speak about your performance and improve on them in the future also. So on the worksheet, we've listed out each of the 7 competencies. And for each, you can write down examples of how you've performed the competency well. You also may want to share the worksheet again with a friend or a colleague and ask which ones do you do really well and which ones they feel you need to work on or that you already know that you need to work on. Then the next section of the worksheet is for filling in ways in which you can develop these competencies. So what are you specifically going to do? What are the action steps that you're going to take that will help you improve in that area? So for example, if you know that you really struggle with conflict management, you could emulate someone that does this really well. Reach out to them for advice on how they approach conflict, or even take an online course on the subject. We know that nowadays there's courses for every single subject under the sun. So you're definitely going to find courses for more information on each of these 7 pillars if you look for them. And sometimes that's the best action that you can take, that's getting some extra education in that area. And this will really help you fast forward your performance. And sometimes you just have to find the situations that will allow you to practice the competency. So for example, if you know that you're always avoiding conflict, which a lot of us are familiar with, because again, our brains, are always gonna kind of seek pleasure. So if you know that you're always avoiding conflict, that's not gonna help you get better at conflict management. Of course, that's just obvious. So sometimes you just have to jump with both feet in and just tackle conflict head on. So we encourage you to choose a few competencies for now that you'd like to work on and identify what you're going to do that will allow you to get closer to your goal. And remember, again, constant review and practice, practice, practice. We can't say practice enough, because that'll really help you step into your role as a leader in not only your professional life, but your personal life as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so important. And there is a reason that we are presenting emotional intelligence to you and the 4 areas of emotional intelligence. And just to review what we've covered, understanding yourself and the impact that you have on others and the way you're perceived, as well as the way you handle relationships, are all crucial aspects of succeeding in the work environment. Therefore, it's going to be really important that you highlight your strengths in these areas in some of or all of the conversations that you'll need to have when you're looking to find a job or change careers. 85% of the jobs that are found through introductions and referrals and not on LinkedIn. So you'll need to be activating your network. And that does not mean going to networking events. It really means reaching out to people that you already know, people that know the way you work, that can vouch for you, that know that you're trustworthy and talented, and they know your work ethic. Now is the time to ask them for introductions or guidance to help you land the job that you've targeted. Remember to use the self-awareness techniques and review this video on the platform. If you're perceived as feeling afraid or anxious or unsure of yourself in any of these conversations or in an interview, it can affect the success of these conversations because you have to put your best foot forward and people need to believe in you. Also, these are a great opportunity to prove and highlight your leadership qualities. In addition to the ones that we've talked about today that are associated with emotional intelligence, other skills that you can highlight include authenticity, trustworthiness, decisiveness, integrity, self-esteem. Connection is really important for a working environment, consistency, and of course, reliability. How are you perceived, and are you projecting the right qualities for the job you're seeking? And we'll go into this on a much deeper level next week. How can you use your background and your experience to create a narrative about yourself that will allow you to affect the person's perception of you in a positive way? So the following exercise will help you be mindful about these discussions and enable you to highlight your strengths in discussions with your contacts and interviewers. We're going to be sending you this worksheet after the session. Which of the leadership skills that we've discussed would be necessary for the job that you're seeking? So the easiest way to find that is to look at the section in the job description on LinkedIn or on the job posting. And the next section, which of these skills do you already possess and have you proved on the job? Write down examples of how you've demonstrated these qualities in the past. Practice speaking about these examples in order for you to tell your story in an authentic way in an interview. Don't be afraid to show your personality. Are you confident and measured or energetic and inspiring? Allow your personality to come through and allow people to really know who you are. So this exercise will help you get used to talking about your leadership strengths. but you need to also prove your leadership strengths on your resume. Any leadership role will say a lot about your character on your resume. Include situations where you've held responsibility for other individuals. You could say team leader, or assumed leadership of a project, or developed or coached colleagues. And this not only shows your ability to be a leader, it also shows that you're comfortable with more responsibility and setting example for others. If you've had an experience as an entrepreneur, include that. Even if the business you started ultimately failed, it shows confidence and ambition to take on challenges and reach for your goals. If you don't have applicable past leadership experience to show, but you can produce examples of your leadership skills in an interview, be sure to at least include leadership as a skill on your resume. The words spearheaded, negotiated, improve team engagement, build strong relationships with business partners or amongst departments, capable of collaborating. These are examples of areas of achievement that you can mention on your resume, which will help you get noticed. Lastly, don't forget to mention your goals for the future. Somewhere on your resume, include that you're looking for a challenge and that you hope to make a positive impact wherever you work. So we encourage you to sit down after this call and think about how your experience has prepared you for your next chapter and the career that you want. And if you were looking for a way to embellish your resume and to make it look amazing, then tune in next week to our workshop.
Yeah, because next week we're going to be talking about selling yourself online and in person while social distancing and wearing a mask. But specifically, we're going to cover amplifying your personal brand, you know, and this is about creating your narrative. We're also going to cover, like Val just mentioned, how to create impactful resumes and LinkedIn profiles, how to use LinkedIn and all of its features to maximize your potential, you know, how you can actually use LinkedIn to not only discover, but also reach out really easily to your network, how to have important conversations to get you closer to your dream job and build confidence to take the first steps, which is sometimes the most important part, right? Just taking that first step. So we'll be covering that as well. And that's it for us and for emotional intelligence today. Again, you know, I have to mention it's a very large subject. I'm lacking in my vocabulary today. I can't find another word for how big it is. But you know, obviously we threw in a lot of worksheets, a lot of tips, a lot of reflection questions in today's session. But we really believe that if you want to and are committed to real change, you know, you say you want something or you say you want to change something, and you're really committed to achieving that goal, it's going to take time and effort, right? And you're going to have to put in the work, but it'll be totally worth it. We promise. So if you have any questions for us, please let us know. I don't see any questions right now in the chat box, but somebody is asking what the link is. So Araya is asking, what's the link for the previous session again?
Okay, so maybe Jill or Brooke could put that in the chat box.
Yeah, and Juan is asking, when will this be posted? Great talk. Thanks, Juan.
Where will this be posted? So I think it is posted on the alumni platform, which is, you click on alumni on the Pitzer website and then events, and then under events, there is an area that says recordings. We plan to post on our YouTube channel this afternoon. Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay, does
So,
anyone have any questions about, finding a new career or getting to work in COVID, or I don't know, Pitzer at Home? Pitzer at Home is the main platform on Pitzer's website. And also, if you enjoyed this session, please send us an email, contact us on our site. We'd love to hear from you. If you have feedback, any kind of feedback, we're always happy to get it.
yeah, I'm gonna stick our email in there in the chat box now. So you can get in touch with us on that email or through our website. We're hanging out, I guess, for the next few minutes. So if you have any burning questions, or just any normal questions, or anything that you feel that we could help you with, we're here to help.
One new message. What did you two study at Pitzer? So I do not study at Pitzer, but I am a parent, and my daughter is a sophomore at Pitzer, and she is currently undecided. But I studied actually art history at the college that I went to, and then I worked in marketing for a long time. And Dina, what did you study?
Yeah, I didn't study at Pitzer either.
But I,
huh?
the joke. I said, but you wish you had.
Yeah, I wish. If only. I could go back, how many years now? Let's not talk about it. No, but I studied marketing. I studied marketing and I worked in advertising for a really long time. And then discovered coaching and realized that I could have a new career. Amanda asks, do you have any advice for someone who has taken a break from their career path and trying to get back on that track? How do you handle having gaps in your resume?
Right. So Amanda, I'm sure that if you think about it long and hard, that there are things that you have done in between. Like maybe have you done any volunteering? Did you stop working because you had a child? That is a totally valid reason to stop working. And it's more about trying to look forward and think of ways that you can sell your skill set and things that you've developed over the past years. So really concentrate on what are you good at, what are your strengths, what are your competencies, and try to build a resume out of that. And I'm sure that your qualities will shine through. And stop by for next week's call because we'll have a whole section on that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. That's really great advice. And also, it's all about creating your narrative, right? Like you get to be the owner and the creator of that, of your own story. It doesn't, just because you have a gap in your resume doesn't necessarily mean anything. You can have it mean whatever you need it to mean, and how that fits into, where you started and what your goal is. And everything in between is okay. It's just kind of, that's what we'll be focusing on next week. Like, what's the best way for you to package that while staying authentic, right? Staying true to yourself.
So there's a great question from Kirsten. I've left a career in law to stay at home for 15 years. I haven't bothered with a resume for years, and I'm thinking about starting a home business in a completely new field. Do you need a resume to network on LinkedIn? You don't need a resume, but as Dina was just talking about, it's about building your narrative about yourself. What's great about the past 15 years? And in terms of the business that you're building, there is probably a story that you have about yourself that led you to this moment of creating your own business. And what is that? So what we will do next week is we will start with your narrative and really creating your bio. And then the bio, if you are looking for a job, can be then transferred into your resume and your LinkedIn profile. But the narrative and the story that we're going to help you create next week is something that you can post on LinkedIn in the About Me section. So definitely come next week, because it's absolutely the workshop for that subject.
And once you sign up on LinkedIn, if you haven't already, they kind of take you through this process of going through listing out your experience and filling in, companies you worked for, your position, and all of that, and what you did, and the years, and the schools that you went to, and all of that. So it kind of builds a rough skeleton, I'd say, of a resume. So if you ever needed, like a Word document or a PDF resume, you could definitely start one off of your LinkedIn profile, if that makes sense.
And also, it is really important, even if you're an entrepreneur, it is so important to have a LinkedIn profile nowadays, because it gives you credibility. So definitely open your account, because next week we'll be talking to you about filling it all in.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Jill. So thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Valerie and Dina. This was a great workshop and an exceptional resource for our alumni and Pitzer community. And we're looking forward to having you next week for the final workshop. And as you've been talking about selling yourself online and in person, and how to create an impactful resume and online profile and build confidence. So thank you so much. And everybody, please join us again next week, and see you then.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye.
Have a great.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.